Okay, so our next intern is going to be Brandon Towey, and he interviewed Steve Berger. So Brandon is actually pre-med here at the college, and I was intrigued with Brandon when I learned about his math and science background, because in a lot of ways it doesn't really connect, but he proved that it would make sense. In his application, he mentioned how he didn't, it would seem it wouldn't connect, but, and to quote him, he said, "It will help me achieve a more rounded education and help further the development of my skills in dealing with people on an individual basis." And then he said, "I feel the medical field too often focuses on the patient's problems and not the patients themselves." So I was really impressed by that. And I know that you'll be a great doctor for just going into it with that wonderful background. So he was interested in the scope of the German takeover, so we decided to pair him with our survivor, Steve Berger.
Hi, how are you? I don't remember writing that at all. But thank you, it sounds really great. So I interviewed Steve Berger, who grew up in Hungary. He was about 16 when the Nazis invaded Hungary. Hungary had decided that it was going to try to ally with the Allies when they saw that Germany was going to lose the war. So because of that, Nazi Germany decided to invade and to hold on to Hungary. And I wasn't aware of this, but actually Hungary had been quite anti-Semitic before that, even before the Nazis came in. It wasn't necessarily as bad as mainland Germany and the lands they had conquered until then, but it wasn't the way of life we're used to. It wasn't the way of life non-Jewish Hungarians were living. So Steve was finishing up, he was pre-engineering in school when the Nazis invaded. Immediately they stripped all the Jewish Hungarians of all their citizen rights, had her start wearing the star. They were moved into a ghetto. And one of the things that struck me was just really how humble Mr. Berger was about what he did during that time. He just calmly told me him and two friends escaped the ghetto, slept outside at night, went into town during the day, got food, hid again during the day, and stuck back into the ghetto at night. And it wasn't bragging. It was just said casually, like, I went to the store and picked up some milk. And it's a really amazing what people can do under these circumstances, and you just do what you have to do. And that's pretty much what really struck me with his story. It was just one thing after another. He just did what he had to do to survive and to protect his family. One of the really amazing aspects of the story is when, after they had been put on trains to a concentration camp, civilians who were working with the Nazis needed engineers, or I believe it was mechanics. Needed mechanics, and as he was pre-engineering, he put his hand up. He said, "I'm a mechanic." He said he figured he could go in there and they wouldn't kill him because they needed him. And an SS officer said, "Okay, get on the truck." And he's like, "Not without my mom and my sister." The guy puts his hand on his gun, and another thing that struck me was just the casual brutality, the dehumanization of Jewish people by the Germans, and by anyone who wasn't Jewish at the time. This SS officer was completely willing to shoot Steve in the head because he wouldn't get on the truck when he told him, because he wanted to bring his mom and his sister with him. And luckily, they needed him. So they took his mother and his sister with him, and he got to get them out of they didn't go to the concentration camp. They went to the factory, which had a little barracks in the back, and they stayed there throughout the war. And he worked in the factory, and what really struck me is I'm a particularly lucky person. I almost died in a car accident when I was 16. I spent like 7 months in the hospital, and that's something Steve had said about his story. He's a very lucky person, and you can see he's grateful for it. And I'm grateful for the life that I can live after I've gone through the things I've gone through. And it's a sobering experience to hear someone, because I can watch the documentaries, I can watch the miniseries, Band of Brothers. I loved it. It was great. It was entertaining, but it's not real until someone says, who's been through it, tells you with the emotion and and just like letting you know what it was like to live during that time. I live a great life. I live in America in the 19th and 20th century. I have absolutely nothing to complain about. And to hear this, it's definitely something I'm going to pass on, and I really appreciate the fact that opportunity to hear his story and to learn more about the Holocaust, because I grew up with the general knowledge of the Holocaust. I grew up in the American education system. I paid attention sometimes, so I remember some of the stuff that they told me. But I wasn't aware that Hungary was anti-Semitic even before the Nazis. I wasn't aware of the depth of the indoctrination of the children, which really led to like a lot of the fanaticism when it came to the anti-Semitism in Germany. And I've really gotten a more rounded education about it. And another thing, I know you had asked a couple of the interns about what really struck you, and this is something Steve had mentioned too. It's like, it's so easy to forget. It's so easy to go back to the same. What's the word I'm thinking about? I'm blanking on the word, but it's easy to go back to the same way of society that leads to this kind of atrocity. And it's, I was sitting there and I was listening to the interns speak and the survivors speak, and I was thinking it's so easy to just disregard a whole race of people, a whole subculture of people with one word or one phrase, and that's really that's the first step in genocide, is to dehumanize people, like calling Jewish people rats back in the 1940s. It's take away the humanity, because there's absolutely no way you could be that brutal if you look at someone and see a human. I see humans. I couldn't just take my gun out and shoot someone right now, or put someone in a camp that I know they're going to starve and die. So it's really, I think that's the one message I got from Mr. Berger, is to just be aware and don't let it ever happen again, and just to remember. And I think that's the main thing about this internship. So thank you.
Great. Steve?
Very well done, Brandon. You remembered everything I told you. You see, when I speak to students, I don't want them to feel that I want to tell them my story. I want them to feel that to learn from my experience. History is very important, because we learn so much from history. And history keeps repeating itself. Different people, different places, but essentially the same thing. Nobody came into my classroom to talk to me what could happen. That's why I'm coming to you here in your classrooms. I want you to learn from my experience. We live in a very dangerous world today. I don't have to tell you. All you have to do is just listen to the news every day. And seeing young people like Brandon learning from my experience, when I leave this world, I know I will leave the history in very good hands. Thank you. I want to be short. I'm not running for office.